So our filter has categories. So categories that most stuff, if it's not educational, it's blocked. There's a lot of new sites daily, hourly. So if they are a popular site that a teacher may be wanting to use for educational purposes, that's when we'd have to look at it. Because sometimes if it's new enough, it may not be categorized in our filter. So we may have to go in and kind of just research it and see what all is it about. Is it safe? Does it have the proper security measures? Are there any privacy concerns? That type of thing before we allow it through our filter.
Hello, and welcome to Mindshift, the PLCS Empowerment Collective podcast. My name is Christopher, and I'm one of your hosts today.
And I'm Deb. I'm your co-host today. Welcome, everyone.
Deb, one of the topics that we have for today is talking about managing devices, and this is something that comes up for me daily as a parent of a 5-year-old. I'm thinking about last night in particular. Leo comes up to me and he says, "Okay, Dad, here's the plan. When we get home, I'm going to watch TV until dinner, and then I'm going to eat dinner, and then after dinner, we're going to play a video game, and then I'll go to bed." And I said, we're going to do one or the other of those two things. We can't do both of them. And so I know that with devices like tablets or the Nintendo Switch, some of those have built-in controls to help parents manage those devices. And I can tell you that as an adult using my devices all the time, I know nothing about how to manage those for kids. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping we can get into a little bit today.
All right. So I'm really interested, Christopher, in how you manage that as a parent. But even more so, I'm curious about what has happened in schools since kids now are using devices at school as well as at home. And since my generation, obviously, did not have devices in school, we had paper and pencils. I'm really interested in having our guests talk about the school, how schools manage it.
Well, and I think you had devices, Deb. It was called an abacus.
Very funny, very funny.
Let's talk about modern devices. We do have a guest expert with us today, so please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Matt Warren. I'm the Director of Technology for Parental Vista Community Schools. And I have been in education for over 15 years. And a lot of that has been in the technology room. So whether it was teaching technology or in a coordinator/director role.
So Matt, you're managing devices for, I mean, all of the students and staff across the district. And then I'm also just going to tuck this in there as well. You have kids at home of your own, right?
Yes. Yep. I've got 3 kids, 14, 11, and an 8. So
managing those two.
Yeah.
So thinking about kind of everything that we've said about device management and thinking about all of what that means, how do you define effective device management? And that can be in your work at school or in your practice at home or both.
Yeah, I think it's a balance. So in this case, I'll start with the Chromebooks because that's what we have at the secondary level. So we manage the Chromebooks. Essentially, we make sure that the student uses our account that we issued them. So that way they're not using outside resources. It's very internal. We restrict it to internal communication only, so just within the district. Same with documentation. So everything is done in-house. That's kind of the safeguard that we have as far as keeping them safe. And then gradually, as they get into college and that type of stuff, that's where they'll work with outside sources and people they can always also get a personal Gmail account or a personal Yahoo or whatever email you want or technology that you want. Video games are a good example. You're going to have external accounts for that as well, where you're sharing online with people. So it's that balance. Like you want to make sure you're restricting so they don't get too wild, but at the same time, you want to give them a freedom because this is the technology that they're going to use from here on out.
And as a school district, what are some of the safeguards that our technology team puts in place? Or if you want to talk more in generalities about things that school district technology teams put in place to help create some of those safeguards for our students?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously keeping it internal helps. And we have what's called a firewall which it essentially takes everything that's external as it comes in. It kind of filters it and sees what is good, what's bad. Um, and, it, and then we also have a filter. So on top of that, we have a filter. So the kids are also filtered at home when they have their device at home. And that is by law. We have to filter to make sure that they're using appropriate websites, that type of stuff. And that's all done here in our district as a first line of defense. So we have the firewall, and we also have a filter that helps keep the kids safe so they're not in anything that could be destructive or harmful.
So I'm wondering, Matt, if I'm a parent and I've got a kid who's got a device at home, what I would know the first thing to do about putting those kinds of safety measures in place. I understand you do because that's what you do. But how does a parent do that at home?
So as a parent, depending on the device, most devices have some type of parental control. So an example would be an iPhone or an iPad that has screen time, and you can set that up on the device. You can do it based on age restriction. So you'll set up how I do my student or how I do my kids at home is I set up Apple accounts for them. I log in with their Apple accounts, but I can manage them as the parent using screen time, and I limit who they can communicate with. I limit what apps they have access to, how long they have access to those apps. And then I can also, what's called downtime. I can give them essentially what I try and do is restrict it an hour before what they normally go to bed. Because the research has shown that, you want to try and limit the screen time an hour before you go to bed to kind of help decompress and get ready for sleep. So that's my approach. If you're on an Android device, they've got Family Link, Google's Family Link. That's an option similar to screen time for the Apple devices. So you can use that. A lot of your gaming consoles, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, any of those, they also have parental controls. A lot of your streaming apps like Netflix, Disney Plus, any of those all have profiles that you can do, and you can create adult versus children profiles, and you can use pins. So that way the kid can't just go to your profile to watch whatever they want. You can set a pin code for that. So there are all sorts of different ways that you can, I hate to say restrict because it sounds so like cutthroat, but to keep them contained to a safe environment, I guess I'll put
It's
it that way.
almost like setting boundaries.
Yes. Yeah. For expectations, if you want to put it that way. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're a parent and you just listen to everything that you said and you have no clue what any of that is or means, what would be a good entry point? Like a good, here, you know what, you're interested in doing some device management, putting some safeguards in place for your kid, but you don't know where to start. Here's a good first step.
Probably what I did, and I'm a little more what they would consider techie, I guess, but I just went to Apple's website and looked. I just looked up screen time to try and figure out exactly what it was, because I really didn't quite understand how I was going to manage their device. Google's got good resources as well for Family Link if you're interested, if you have an Android.
Well, and we have on our website for the show, plcschools.org/Mindshift, we have resources for every episode. And so I will check with Matt and get links to those tutorial pages for Android devices and Apple devices and have them available in the show notes for today's episode so that if you want to get started by reading about those features that are available there, then you can find that on our website.
And so you have to do that almost full time at school, I would imagine, so that they're not logging into other websites, or what do we do at school?
Yeah, a lot. The filter and the firewall do a lot for us here at the district level. Filter obviously helps us at home as well. But yeah, I mean, we lock it down to that internal account. They can't use an external Gmail account, anything like that. We also restrict certain apps or extensions that they can use on the Chromebook. A lot of that's for performance reasons. It's not necessarily that we're worried safety, security type of thing, but it just helps the Chromebook run faster. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's a full-time job to try and to keep, and everything changes. It changes constantly, especially with the big players, Google, Apple. They're constantly making changes to their products. So yeah, keeping up with that and staying on track can be tough. Yeah.
So
And as a parent as well.
if a student's doing research and they want to look things up on the internet, are they able to do that from their Chromebook?
Yes. Yep.
So that there are some things we let them have access to.
Yes. Yeah.
And is there a process, Matt, that you use to decide which things we're going to allow students to have and which things we're not?
I think what Deb is kind of asking here, and I take this for granted, I don't think she understands how a filter works.
No.
Okay. So yeah, so let's say I want to go to www.poker.com. Like I want to play online poker.
Okay.
That site would be restricted under our filter. So our filter has categories. So categories that most stuff, if it's not educational, it's blocked. Kind of, it can get tricky because there's a lot of new sites daily, hourly, minute by minute. So a lot of those come up as unknown. So if they are a popular site that a teacher may be wanting to use for educational purposes, that's when we'd have to look at it. Because sometimes if it's new enough, it may not be categorized in our filter. So we may have to go in and kind of just research it and see what all is it about. Is it safe? Does it have the proper security measures? Are there any privacy concerns? That type of thing before we allow it through our filter. So our filter is literally a filter. So you got a bunch of stuff coming in through it, but we only allow a little bit of that to come out. So
my understanding then, to kind of build off of what you were saying, is, you mentioned the categories. And so there are little tiny robots inside the machine that are crawling the internet at all times, finding all the websites, and then reporting back to the filter and saying, mattmoore.com is categorized as this, or, poker.com is categorized as gambling. And then on our end, we have a list of those categories, and we say, these are the categories that our students can access. Anything outside of those categories, our students cannot access, and they're filtered out by the filter. But like you were saying, in the event that a new website comes out and the little robots haven't reached it yet to categorize it, it's marked as unknown. And so a teacher could, in theory, submit that to our tech team for manual review, if you will, to take a look at it and see if it's appropriate or not for use in schools.
yes. Yep. You got it.
So do we change what kids have access to as they get older? Do we open it up?
We do a little bit at the school level. Yeah, we do a little bit. Majority of that is probably email more than anything. And a lot of that has to do with scholarships, honestly. Like that's usually what drives a lot of it, is then being able to email outside entities, universities, trade schools, that type of thing, so they can get scholarships. So that drives a lot of why we open up email.
So in hearing about all these different things, so parental controls, screen time controls, some of the safeguards that the schools put in place for the devices that they issue, if you're at home and you're working with your kid and maybe you have a level of concern about what they're doing on their device, do you have any good look fors? Like if as a parent, what should I keep an eye out for to know maybe my kid is trying to skirt around some of these safeguards that are in place or something like that? Or is there anything that might tip me off to that?
Yeah, asking a lot of questions. And usually if the response is short or if it's defensive, that's when I start to be like, like why do you get so defensive when I ask that about whatever game it is that he's playing? Yeah. So yeah, that's usually what I see. They're either short or defensive, or their mood changes, things like that, mood swings. Yeah, defensiveness is probably the one that I've seen the most as far as my kids go. When I ask questions like, what are you on? What are you doing? What are you listening to? What are you watching? Those type of questions, and nothing's perfect. So there's no silver bullet. I guess that's the main thing I want to put across, and no parent's perfect. I think as long as we're trying and asking those good questions, that's really kind of where it lands.
We're getting to the end of this episode. And Matt, we have one final question for you. What gives you hope about families finding balance with technology?
I think the amount of research, I feel like we're getting more and more research behind screen time and how to approach it. Because it's just something new for my generation for sure. And anybody that's older than my generation, it's new. Like we didn't have these growing up. So like understanding how our kids use it and how they're going to use it in the future is what gives me hope. I think there's a lot of research behind it. There's a lot of good resources out there that can help with the parenting, and as a tech director as well. There's always resources out there to help our students.
Yeah, that's encouraging.
Matt, thank you for this conversation today. I feel like we had some practical takeaways for families. And again, be sure to check out our website at plcschools.org/Mindshift for resources related to today's episode and all of our episodes. And thank you at home for listening. And be sure to join us next week when we'll be discussing another exciting topic.